The Mark Dolan Show on Talk Radio.
Are women going to lead us out of this lockdown madness? A science dominated by middle-aged men seems to be very attached to the idea of COVID restrictions, lockdowns, face coverings, and could women have the answer? This is a remarkable article in Think Scotland by an activist and housewife and entrepreneur called Helen Gray. The road to hell, is there a way back, is the headline. Recent events have challenged many of my preconceptions, shaken previous articles of faith to the core, and made me re-examine an annoyingly inconvenient number of long-held assumptions. Given the inexplicable, senseless, punitive and draconian behaviour of our governments over the past year, I cannot blame anyone for trying to discern a theory that does make sense of it all, no matter how far-fetched. Far-fetchedness itself has had to up its game recently. If 18 months ago I had predicted we'd be where we are now, that our governments would do what they've done, that our society would have responded in the way that it has, you would have thought I was certifiably insane. The article goes on, I am a tiny speck of a single human, and I can't count the times this year I've watched aghast as inexorably unfolding measures harm the most vulnerable, and I have bitterly asked, why are they doing this? The author of this remarkable piece that's gone viral is a fantastic guest who I'm very pleased to welcome. It's Helen Gray, housewife, small business owner and reluctant activist. Hi, Helen.
Hello, Mark. It's really good to be here. I am a very nervous small speck of a human being. This is the first time I've done something like this.
Well, listen, we're privileged to have you. It's a remarkable piece of journalism, and I hope that you've got a lot more articles in you. And understandably, it's achieved a fantastic response. Throughout the past few months, we've seen women emerge from all walks of life and oppose the restrictions placed on us. Good friends of this show, for example, Emma Kenny, the TV psychologist, Tonya Buxton, the celebrity chef, Jessie Wallace, who is part of the campaign group What About Weddings, and Dr. Claire Craig, who is a consultant pathologist. Is there something masculine about lockdowns? Does it feel like a male idea?
I have not seen it in that light. It's certainly authoritarian. It's certainly rule following, but I don't think it's a male-female thing. I know many women who are just as gung-ho for lockdowns and all the restrictions as men.
Do you think there's perhaps more empathy, though, from women that have children that are thinking about the sort of more human aspect of lockdowns?
Possibly. Certainly that was what did it for me. Although I was, well, like the rest of the country, very, very worried at the outset of this. I was terrified. I utterly bought into the 3 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah, we all did, yeah.
I supported our government's actions in the face of an unknown and terrifying threat. What subsequently happened seemed to me to bear very little relationship with the actual figures and with the data and with the people who were being affected by this. And the real sticking point for me was the big lie that we're all in this together. It's what actually drove me to action, because I am one of the very lucky ones sitting in my nice house with my garden. I was able, basically, if you had money at the start of this, you've been okay this year. You might even have wound up with a bit more money than you did at the start of it. But if you didn't, God help you. What for some of us has been a year of inconvenience, for others has been a year of unendurable hell. And the injustice of that, and especially the injustice of that to the young and to children, is something that I can't sit and do nothing.
A group in society, the young and children, who have precious little to fear from the virus, and yet they've paid perhaps the highest price.
Yes, without a shadow of it. Well, those and the elderly. We have treated both those groups absolutely shamefully. And I am sure that in 10 years' time, when with sober reflection, we look back on what we have done, we will be thoroughly ashamed of our madness in pursuit of some nebulous idea of safety.
You are a professional gardener and the creator of cakeandliberty.org. So tell me about Cake and Liberty.
Well, I was whinging about the injustice of it, and my poor long-suffering husband would tell me, oh, look, it's just a few more weeks. It's just until we get the vaccines. It's just until we get the first 4 groups vaccinated. It's just until we get all 9 groups, and so on. And I was pouring out my heart online, finding like-minded people. We would all agree with each other about how terrible this was. But I realized that I could wail into my little echo chamber until I had no more tears left. What makes a difference is actually going out and talking to people who don't agree with you. So in March of this year, I had an idea, and I thought, well, it was also grim. At that point in Scotland, which is where I live, we were still under a stay-at-home order, where legally you could only leave your home to go for your daily exercise. I mean, if I'd said that to you a year ago, would you have believed me?
Yes.
And so I thought, well, I'll do something to connect with the scared, frightened people that I see on my daily walks, flinching away from me as we cross each other on the street, closed into masks, introspective, isolated. I thought, I'm going to do something that starts normalizing what the old normal was. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to make people smile. I'm going to get dressed up in bright colors. I'm going to bake some cakes. I'm going to take a basket and I'm going to just go and hand out free cake to people and smile. And if anyone wants to talk, great. And from that little beginning, it's now, this Saturday will be week 12 that I have done this, and I have learned a great deal in the interim.
So it's a weekly occurrence. What was the initial reaction, Helen? In by the way, I should point out Fife, which is Fife, the east coast of Scotland. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the initial reaction of locals?
The first week, it was possibly more positive than it should have been, because I didn't have my signage right. I think a lot of people who accepted cake probably thought I was advertising for a new bakery that was opening in town.
Right.
Since then, I've got some extremely assertive umbrellas with slogans on them like "Don't jab healthy kids" or "No masks in school." And remember, for the rest of the UK listeners, Scottish school children are still forced to wear masks for the entire duration of the school day. In the heat, with no scientific rationale for this whatsoever. So once I started putting quite obvious banners on my protest umbrellas, I started to get a bit more pushback. But every week, the overwhelming majority of the response has been positive. And this is the thing, you can't tell when you're walking past someone on the street, masked up, perhaps elderly. You would just assume, oh, they really buy into this. They are convinced that this is what they are doing. The number of elderly masked people masked outside, anyway, who I have offered cake to, and when they say, yes, why? And I explain that I am a one-woman protest against disproportionate restrictions, making my protest through the medium of cake. the number of them who have said, God, yes, I hate this. I can't wait to be able to take it off. But they are still law-abiding in a way that I no longer am. And they are waiting. They will not unmask until a figure of authority, and yes, Boris Johnson, yes, Nicola Sturgeon, I'm looking at the pair of you, until a figure of authority tells them now is the time to be brave. You've stayed safe. Now is the time to stop doing this. They're not going to do this of their own accord because they are responsible, law-abiding citizens who cannot countenance the thought that what they are being told to do by their governments is meaningless hygiene theatre.
Well, the best values of the British people when it comes to compliance and thinking about the greater good has been exploited, hasn't it, in the course of this pandemic?
Absolutely.
And I think that when we realise that the response has been disproportionate and highly damaging, public trust in the state, I think, will go through the floor.
I have until recently been a really very conventional person. I'm the sort of person who, if somebody hands me back too much change in a shop, I give it up. I pick up litter. I volunteer for stuff. I have a really highly developed sense of duty, and my conscience, my sense of duty now is telling me to break the law. When I read Lord Sumption's views on the fact that some laws are so unjust that the moral course of action is to break them, I thought, yes, okay, yeah, this is where I am. I feel utterly bereft that the media that I trusted all of my life until very recently has been so utterly supine and one-sided and so complicit in transmitting this agenda of fear, which has there will be people who go to their deaths still afraid when they don't need to be. I think what we are doing is criminal, and that's even before we get to the issue of vaccinating children. Jesus.
Yeah, which I'm sure you're strongly against. And on this programme yesterday, in my daily monologue, I said that if restrictions are not fully lifted on the 21st of June, it is a crime against the British people because we are where we are with the pandemic. Cases are incredibly low compared to where they were. Deaths are hovering between 1-2 people, 13 in the last 24 hours. Very tragic, of course, each and every one. But hundreds are dying every day from cancer and other illnesses. We're baking poverty into the system for decades. We are shrinking the footprint of our economy, which means we won't have money for life-saving NHS treatment and proper education for our kids or safe streets. I mean, the nightmare continues, Helen. What are your thoughts about the future? I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
I think that the next few weeks, we are on a knife edge, actually. I do, whilst in no way diminishing the severity of COVID, which is a really nasty respiratory disease with all sorts of added nasty extras that may well have been, it is now emerging, engineered into it. So I don't think it's something that we should take lightly at all. But still, the average age of death is 82, which is a year older than all-cause death in this country. And still, it is 99.6% survivable. So I do, however, think that there will be a seasonal factor in this. And if we do not act this summer, when respiratory diseases are traditionally at a low point, in order to lift all restrictions, let case numbers, which are PCR cases and do not equate,
therefore not 100% accurate.
Indeed.
And that's being polite.
Yes, let's monitor hospital admissions. Let's really monitor deaths, but let's monitor deaths of different age groups as well. If there is going to be another wave, and it depends on your definition of wave, but certainly if we lift restrictions and we keep on testing to the absurd levels that we currently are, we are going to see greater positive case numbers. Let's have it over the summer now. Let's have it over the summer. Let's have it with let's let the young ones get it, because they are at hardly any risk whatsoever from it, and let us manage it safely within the benefit of our summer.
Getting COVID is a vaccine from COVID and far more effective than any intravenous solution.
Indeed. And if we don't, however, if we say, no, it's not safe. And it's funny this, when people do disagree with me when I'm handing out cakes and they say, well, okay, yes, I do agree that, 400,000 people haven't started cancer treatment this year than did last year. Oh, yeah, okay, that's bad, but it's not safe yet. So I say, okay, what is it going to take for you to feel safe? What criteria have to be met? What numbers do you need to see?
And how many lives do you have to damage?
Yeah, but even if you ask, okay, what does safe look like for you? They can't answer. No. And it's not their fault. It's because we have been so terrified to this pervasive sense of fear, of danger, has been so internalized by people that people who are scared now are never going to stop feeling scared unless we start. We can't wait for them not to feel scared before we start lifting restrictions. And if we don't lift restrictions now, we're just pushing everything back into the autumn, when it will be worse, when there'll be less outdoor activities. I think we would see restrictions continue forever if we don't lift them now. So yeah, I think the next few weeks are key, and it's why I'm completely behind the unmask on the 21st of June, no matter what the government does, because the greatest, strongest thing about unmasking is you are showing other people, you are making a visual, visible sign that you are no longer complying, and people derive the ripples of that courage, calls to courage everywhere.
Helen, a remarkable article. It's been brilliant to have you on the programme. Her piece can be found at thinkscotland.org. Helen Gray is on Twitter, and it's @andthegarden, @andthegarden. I'm duty bound to say that we must follow all the rules and follow the law. And so I don't agree with any suggestion of breaking the law or not following the rules. I loathe those masks. You know I do. But I'm not exempt and I wear one. However, I fight to the death for Helen to have her say and share her view and to live her life.